The morning sun rose over Haven 7 like it did every day, painting the wheat fields in gold and orange. Stood at the edge of his farm, coffee in hand, watching the wind move through the crops like waves on an ocean. He was 62 years old now, with gray hair and rough hands from 30 years of farming. Most people who met him saw only a quiet old farmer. They did not see the soldier he used to be. They did not see the nightmares he still had. And that was exactly how wanted it. Haven 7 was a small world, far from Earth, far from the busy center of the galaxy. 10,000 humans lived here, growing food that they traded with alien species from nearby systems. It was a simple life, a peaceful life. Had come here to forget the wars he fought when he was young. He came here to grow things instead of destroy them. For 30 years it had worked. His daughter walked up beside him, her engineering tablet under her arm. She was 30 years old, smart and stubborn like her mother had been before the sickness took her. Had been born on Haven 7. She had never seen Earth, never seen war, never known anything but peace and hard work and open skis. "The irrigation system is fixed," she said. "Old Farmer Bay's fields will get water again." Nodded. "Good, thank him for his patience." "I did, he gave me vegetables," she smiled. "Too many vegetables, our kitchen is full of them now." This was life on Haven 7. Small problems, small kindnesses, neighbors helping neighbors. The colony had no army, no weapons beyond hunting rifles. They had never needed them. The galaxy was large, and Haven 7 was too small and too far away for anyone to care about. That changed when the ships came. Park saw them first. She was the settlement administrator, a serious woman of 50 who handled all the paperwork and politics that kept the colony running. She was in her office when the communication array started screaming with alerts. Ships were entering the system. Many ships, big ships. She sent a message to every home in the colony. "Unknown fleet approaching. Everyone stay calm. Stay in your homes." But staying calm became impossible when the ships got closer. There were 40 of them, black and angular, covered in weapons. They moved like predators, surrounding the planet from all sides. No one on Haven 7 had ever seen warships before, but everyone understood what they were looking at. The aliens called themselves the Dominion. They were creatures, tall and thin, with hard shells and eyes like black glass. They had ruled this region of space for 2,000 years. They saw themselves as the natural masters of all soft species creatures made of weak flesh instead of strong shell. Their leader came down to the colony in a shuttle. He called himself Executor, and he stood in the middle of the town square like he already owned everything he saw. His voice was cold and sharp, translated through a device on his chest. "This world now belongs to the Dominion," he announced. "You will provide labor and resources as required. You will obey all commands. Resistance will result in death. Cooperation will be rewarded with continued existence." Stood in the crowd, listening. His hands were shaking, but not from fear. It was something older, something he had buried deep inside himself for 30 years. He looked at the soldiers surrounding the square, their weapons pointed at families and children. He looked at Executor, who stared at the humans like they were insects. The anger was waking up. A young farmer named stepped forward. He was 25, recently married, with a baby daughter at home. He was scared, but he was also proud. "You cannot do this," he said. "We are citizens of Earth, we have rights, the Galactic Council." Executor raised one clawed hand. A soldier stepped forward and shot through the chest. He fell without a sound. His wife screamed from somewhere in the crowd. "The Galactic Council does not care about you," said calmly. "No one cares about you. You are small. You are weak. You are alone. Does anyone else wish to discuss rights?" 2 more farmers stepped forward. Maybe they were brave. Maybe they were just too shocked to think clearly, did not care about the difference. He had them shot too. Watched the 3 bodies fall. He watched the blood spread across the dirt of the square where children played just yesterday. He watched Space go pale as she recognized one of the dead. Old, her engineering mentor, the kind man who taught her everything she knew. The crowd was silent. No one moved, no one breathed. Better said, "You are learning. Work assignments begin tomorrow. Those who work well will eat. Those who do not will die. This is the way of the Dominion. This is the way it has always been. This is the way it will always be." The soldiers pushed through the crowd, grabbing young men and women, sorting them into groups. Families were separated. Children cried for parents who could not reach them. Anyone who moved too slowly was hit with electric sticks that left burns on the skin. Did not move. He did not resist. He let the soldiers push him into a labor group with other older farmers. He kept his eyes down and his mouth shut, because understood something that they did not. This was not surrender, this was patience. That night, after the soldiers had assigned them to crowded shelters and locked the doors, found in the darkness. "How bad?" he whispered. "Bad," she whispered back. "They're taking inventory of everything. Food, equipment, people. They've already separated 200 children for something they call processing. No one knows what that means." Closed his eyes. He thought about his wife, dead for 10 years now, who had made him promise to stay peaceful, to never pick up a weapon again. He thought about his daughter, who deserved a better world than this. He thought about the 3 bodies in the square and the 200 children being taken somewhere unknown. He thought about a sealed container he had buried under his farmhouse 30 years ago. A container he swore he would never open. "I need to get to my farm," he said. Stared at him. "They have guards everywhere. The punishment for leaving the shelter is death." "I know." Something in his voice made her pause. She had known for 20 years. She had never heard him sound like this before. "What's in your farm?" He looked at her with eyes that were no longer the eyes of a farmer. They were the eyes of something older, something harder, something that had been sleeping for a very long time. "The man I used to be," he said. 3 hours later, returned to the shelter. His clothes were dirty. His hands were scraped. But under his coat he carried a small bag that clinked softly with metal. Was waiting for him, her eyes red from crying. "They took," she said. "He was like a grandfather to me. He never hurt anyone. He just wanted to teach and build things." Held his daughter. He felt her shaking with grief and rage. "They killed him because he stood up," she continued. "Because he was brave, and no one did anything. We all just stood there." "We stood there because we were not ready," said quietly. "But we will be. I promise you we will be." He opened the bag just enough for her to see inside. Old military equipment, communication devices, things that should not exist on a peaceful farming colony. Looked at her father with new eyes. "Who were you," she asked, "before you were a farmer?" Looked toward the window, where patrol ships moved across the night sky like hungry insects. "Someone who made empires afraid," he said, "and I think it's time to remember how." 6 months passed under rule, and Haven 7 became a place of shadows and silence. The wheat fields still grew, but now overseers watched every harvest. The food went into ships, leaving the humans with just enough to survive. People worked from sunrise to sunset, their bodies growing thin and tired. The old and sick were taken away to medical facilities that no one ever returned from. Children disappeared into education centers where they learned to serve the Dominion. Lee had been a schoolteacher before the invasion. He taught history and literature to the children of Haven 7, filling their minds with stories of Earth and humanity's journey to the stars. Now they had closed all human schools. Children were supposed to learn only language, rules, obedience, but refused to let human knowledge die. Every night after the patrols passed, he gathered children in the basement of an old storage building. He taught them by candlelight, keeping his voice low. He told them about Earth's history, the struggles, the wars, the times when humans faced impossible enemies and refused to give up. "There was a country called Korea," he whispered to a room of 12 children. Long ago, it was invaded by empires much larger than itself. The people were told to forget their language, forget their names, forget who they were. But they did not forget. They kept their stories alive in secret, just like we are doing now. And when the time came, they rose up and took back their freedom. A small girl named raised her hand. Will we rise up too? Looked at her thin face, her hungry eyes. She was 8 years old. She had watched her father get beaten by soldiers for walking too slowly. Yes, he said, when we are ready, when the time is right. When will that be? Did not have an answer, but someone else did. Was partner, a medic who had treated injuries and delivered bobbies for 15 years on Haven 7. Now she treated the wounds that soldiers left on human bodies, burns from electric sticks, broken bones from beatings, cuts and bruises that never seemed to heal because people were too tired and too hungry. She documented everything, every injury, every death, every crime. She had a small camera hidden in her medical bag, and she recorded evidence that she hoped would someday matter. The galaxy needs to know, she told one night. Earth needs to know. We cannot fight the alone, but if we can get this information out, maybe someone will help us. The control all communications, said. Nothing gets off this planet without their permission. Then we need to find another way. That way came from. In 6 months, the old farmer had changed. He still worked in the fields during the day, still kept his head down and his mouth shut around soldiers. But at night, he was someone else. He met with trusted people in secret locations, building a network of resistance. Former soldiers who had hidden their pasts, engineers who could build weapons from farming equipment, ordinary people who had lost too much to stay afraid. They called themselves the Embers, a fire that looked dead but still held heat inside, waiting for the right moment to burn again. His daughter became one of his most valuable members. Her engineering skills let her modify communication equipment to send coded signals. She worked on the problem of reaching Earth for weeks, failing again and again, until one night she succeeded. It's not much, she told her father. A narrow beam transmission that the might not detect. We can send small amounts of data, text and images, not enough for a conversation but enough to tell Earth we're alive. Do it, said. The first message was simple. Haven 7 under occupation, thousands enslaved, children being taken, we are still here, we need help. They did not know if anyone received it. They did not know if Earth even cared. All they could do was keep sending and hope. Weeks passed, then months, no response came. Maybe the message didn't get through, said. Maybe Earth has forgotten us, said bitterly. We're so far away, we're so small. Why would they risk a war for 10,000 farmers? But refused to give up hope. We keep fighting, he said. Whether help comes or not, we keep fighting because it's the right thing to do. Then they made their worst mistake. Executor announced that 200 children would be transported off-world for integration into Dominion service. The children would be taken to training facilities, where they would be taught to serve as workers, soldiers, or worse. Their families would never see them again. The announcement was made in the town square, the same place where 3 farmers had been shot 6 months ago. Parents screamed and cried. Some tried to run to their children and were beaten down by soldiers. They did not understand why humans made such noise over young ones. In culture, children belonged to the state, not to families. Stood in the crowd, watching. Her hands were shaking. Her jaw was tight. She thought about the children she had taught alongside. She thought about little who had asked when they would rise up. Was on the list. She was going to be taken. That night the Embers met in an underground room beneath an old barn. There were 40 of them now, farmers, teachers, engineers, medics, people who had never held weapons in their lives, mixed with a few who had held too many. We cannot let them take the children, said. We have to do something. If we attack, they will kill us all, someone argued. We are 40 people against hundreds of soldiers. If we do nothing, they will take our children anyway, replied. What are we saving ourselves for? The room went quiet. Everyone looked at. The old man stood slowly. His body was tired, but his eyes burned with something that made younger people look away. 6 months ago, we watched 3 of our people die and did nothing, he said. We told ourselves we were being smart. We told ourselves we were surviving. But survival without freedom is just slow death. They don't see us as people. They see us as resources. They will use us until we are empty, and then they will throw us away. He looked around the room at each face. I spent 30 years trying to forget how to fight. I came to this world to be peaceful. I wanted my daughter to never know war. But peace is not something we can choose alone. They chose war when they came here. They chose war when they killed our neighbors. They chose war when they decided to take our children. His voice grew stronger. I am done being peaceful. I am done being patient. If they want to take our children, they will have to go through us. And I promise you, I promise every person in this room, they will learn that humans do not break easily. They will learn that when humans say enough, empires fall. Stepped forward and stood beside her father. Then, one by one, every person in the room stood. How do we fight them? Someone asked. They have weapons, they have ships, they have armor. Smiled. It was not a kind smile. They have technology, he said. We have something better. We have people who have nothing left to lose. We have engineers who can turn farming tools into weapons. We have the knowledge of every war humanity has ever fought, and we have surprise. They think we are broken. They think we are weak. They will not expect us to fight. He pulled out a map of the garrison. In 3 days, they will load the children onto transport ships. Before that happens, we take the garrison. We capture their weapons. We capture their communication center. And we send a message to Earth that cannot be ignored. And then, asked, they will send more ships, more soldiers. Then we hold this world until help comes, said, or we die free. Those are the only choices left. 3 days later, as the sun set over Haven 7, the Embers attacked. 40 humans against 200 soldiers. Farming tools against advanced weapons. Desperation against arrogance. By midnight, the garrison was in human hands. Executor fled in a shuttle broadcasting distress signals. The children were safe. And stood in the captured communication center, speaking into a transmitter that could reach across the stars. This is Haven 7 calling Earth. We are still here. We have taken back our colony. They will send a fleet to destroy us. We have 3 weeks, maybe less. Send everyone, send everything. We will not kneel. We will not surrender, and we will not forgive. Across the galaxy, in ships and stations and worlds, humans heard the message. And they began to move. The message from Haven 7 reached Earth in 6 hours. Within 12 hours, it had spread to every human colony, every ship, every station in the galaxy. People watched the recording of speaking from the captured garrison. They saw the tired faces of farmers holding alien weapons. They heard the story of children almost taken, of neighbors killed in the square, of 6 months of slavery and silence. The galaxy expected humanity to send diplomats, to file complaints with the Galactic Council, to write strongly worded letters and hope for the best. The galaxy did not understand humans. Admiral Shin received the message aboard the Earth Defense Station orbiting Luna. She was 58 years old, small and thin, with short gray hair and eyes that had seen too much death. She had commanded human fleets for 30 years. She had fought pirates, rebels, and 3 different alien species who thought humans were easy prey. She had never lost a battle. She had never shown mercy to slavers. Her reputation among alien intelligence agencies was spoken of in whispers. They called her the Gray Ghost because her ships appeared without warning and left only wreckage behind. They called her the Patient Knife because she waited and planned and struck at exactly the right moment. When she finished watching's message, She stood silently for a long moment. Then she turned to her aide. "How many ships can we gather in 2 weeks?" "Ma'am, most of our combat fleet was officially decommissioned after the Accords." "I did not ask about official records. I asked how many ships." The aide swallowed. 62 combat-ready vessels, Admiral, if we pull from the reserves." "Do it, every ship, every crew. We move in 14 days." "Admiral, the Dominion will send a much larger force. Our intelligence suggests they could gather 400 warships." Shin looked at the image of Haven 7 on her screen. A small world, a quiet colony, farmers and teachers and children who wanted nothing but peace. "Then we will fight 400 warships," she said. "Get me a channel to the United Earth Council. We have a war to start." The council meeting was short. Some politicians argued for caution, for diplomacy, for waiting to see what they would do. Admiral Shin listened to them speak, then showed them evidence: the recordings of beatings, the lists of dead, the images of children being sorted like cargo. The vote was unanimous: Earth would fight. 2 weeks later, the combined fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Haven system. 62 ships against an empire. It was not enough. Everyone knew it was not enough. But Admiral Shin had not survived 30 years of war by fighting fair. The punishment armada arrived 3 days later. 400 warships, led by Supreme Commander, a veteran of 100 conquests. He looked at the human fleet on his sensors and felt something close to amusement. 60 ships, he said to his officers. They sent 60 ships to challenge the Dominion. These creatures are more foolish than we thought. Should we offer them surrender? An officer asked. No, make an example of them. Destroy every ship. Then burn the colony. Let the galaxy see what happens to those who resist. The fleet advanced in a standard formation, a wall of ships moving forward together, overwhelming enemies with pure numbers. It had worked for 2,000 years. There was no reason to change it now. Admiral Shin watched them come. She stood on the bridge of her flagship, the S Unbroken, her hands clasped behind her back. Around her, officers worked at their stations, calm and focused. They trusted her. They had always trusted her. "They're using the wall formation," her tactical officer reported. "Standard assault pattern. They expect us to meet them head-on." "Then let's not disappoint them," Shin said. "Signal all ships. Execute pattern Songbird." The human fleet split into 5 groups and began to move in ways they had never seen before. They did not fly in straight lines. They curved and twisted, using the gravity of nearby moons and asteroids to change direction suddenly. 3 groups dove below the formation. 2 groups rose above it. "What are they doing?" Commander demanded. "They're scattering. This is chaos." It was not chaos, it was precision. The human ships hit the fleet from 5 directions at once. They did not try to match the enemy ship for ship. Instead, they targeted engines, weapons systems, communication arrays. 30 ships lost power in the first 5 minutes, their formations broken. Tried to reorganize his forces, but human ships moved too fast, too unpredictably. Every time he turned to face one group, another hit him from behind. His own ships began blocking each other's firing lines. Friendly fire destroyed a dozen more vessels. "Impossible," growled. "They are too few, they cannot do this." But humans fought differently than any species that had faced before. Captain Bang commanded a destroyer called the Hammer. His ship was hit early in the battle, losing main weapons and shields. Any captain would have retreated. Did not. "Navigation, plot a collision course with that carrier," he ordered. "Sir, we'll be destroyed." "I know. Life pods ready. All hands abandon ship on my command." The Hammer accelerated toward the carrier, a ship 10 times its size. Gunners tried to stop it, but the human ship twisted and dodged until the last moment, waited until his crew reached the life pods, then ejected himself just before impact. The hammer hit the carrier's bridge at full speed. Both ships exploded. But the carrier had been Supreme Commander's flagship. Without him, the command structure fell apart. Across the battlefield, other human crews performed similar acts of desperate bravery. Pilots flew damaged fighters into enemy weapons, jamming them before ejecting. Engineers overloaded reactors to create explosions that destroyed 3 or 4 enemy ships at once. Soldiers held positions on boarded ships long after logic said they should surrender. They could not understand it. Their tactical programs had no category for enemies who sacrificed themselves. Their commanders had no training for opponents who did not fear death. They began to panic, to make mistakes, to turn on each other in confusion. By the time the battle ended, they had lost 340 ships. Humanity lost 23. It was the greatest military defeat the Dominion had suffered in 2,000 years. Admiral Shin stood on her bridge looking at the wreckage floating in space. Around her, officers cheered and embraced. They had won. Against impossible odds, they had won. But Shin did not celebrate. She opened a communication channel, one that would broadcast across the entire galaxy. "This message is for the survivors of the fleet," she said, "and for every species listening across the stars. Today, you attacked our people. You enslaved our farmers. You tried to take our children. You thought we were soft because we chose peace." Her voice grew cold. "Understand this clearly, we chose peace. We can choose differently. We have been kind because we wanted to be kind. We have been patient because patience was wise, but our patience has limits. Our kindness has conditions, and those conditions are simple. Do not touch our people. Do not threaten our children. Do not mistake our gentleness for weakness." She paused, letting the words sink in. "Run home, survivors. Run to your masters. Tell them what happened here. Tell them what we are. Tell them that when humans say enough, empires fall. And if you ever come back, if you ever threaten another human world, we will not stop at your fleet. We will come to we will free every slave you have ever taken. We will burn every palace where your leaders hide. And we will teach the galaxy that some species are not worth conquering." She ended the transmission. The surviving ships fled into faster-than-light travel, running toward home as fast as their engines could carry them. On Haven 7, the colonists watched the battle's end through telescopes and sensors. They saw the run. They saw the human fleet, battered but victorious, moving toward their world. Stood in the square where 3 farmers had died 6 months ago. His daughter stood beside him. Around them, people cried and laughed and held each other. "They came," whispered. "They actually came." Nodded slowly, tears in his eyes. "We are not alone," he said. "We were never alone, we just forgot." The first human shuttles landed an hour later, bringing soldiers and medics and food. Admiral Shin came down personally to meet the colonists. She was smaller than expected, quieter. But when she shook his hand, he felt the steel in her grip. "You held this world for 3 weeks with 40 farmers," she said. "That was impressive." "We did what we had to do," replied. "What anyone would do." Shin shook her head. "No, not anyone, only humans. That's what the galaxy needs to learn." She looked up at the sky, where the stars were coming out. "This isn't over," she said. "They will want revenge. Other empires are watching. We've shown them what we can do. Now we have to decide what we want to do." "What do you mean?" Shin's eyes were hard. "We can defend ourselves and wait for the next attack, or we can take the fight to them. Make sure no one ever thinks of threatening humanity again." Thought about the 6 months of slavery, the dead in the square, the children almost taken. He thought about every other human colony that might face the same fate. "We fight," he said. "We make them understand." Shin nodded. "That's what I thought you'd say." News of the Battle of Haven spread across the galaxy like fire. Every species, every empire, every small world heard about the day 60 human ships defeated 400 warships. The recordings of Admiral Shin's message were, and shared billions of times. Alien scholars studied the battle footage, trying to understand how it was possible. 3 empires had been secretly planning to attack human territories. They had seen humanity as weak, a young species, spread thin across a few dozen colonies, too peaceful to fight back. Within a week of Haven, all 3 quietly canceled their plans. They moved their fleets away from human borders. They sent diplomatic messages filled with kind words and offers of friendship. Humans noticed, humans remembered. On Haven 7, the colony began to heal. Food shipments arrived from Earth. Medical teams treated the sick and wounded. Soldiers patrolled the streets, but they were human soldiers now, protecting their own people. The garrison was empty, its alien equipment shipped away for study. Lee returned to teaching, but his lessons were different now. Children who had hidden in basements to learn human history now sat in open classrooms. They learned about the Battle of Haven. They learned about the Embers. They learned that ordinary people could do extraordinary things when pushed too far. Little, the girl who had asked when they would rise up, was in his first class. "Teacher," she said, "are the bad aliens gone forever?" Wanted to say yes. He wanted to promise her safety and peace and a world without fear, but was not a man who lied to children. "Some of them are gone," he said carefully, "but there are other bad aliens in the galaxy, other empires who hurt people. The fight isn't over yet." "Will we have to fight again?" "Maybe, probably, but this time we won't fight alone, and we won't fight just for ourselves." Nodded seriously, the way children do when they understand more than adults expect. "Good," she said, "I want to help." Evidence became famous. Her recordings of crimes were presented to the Galactic Council, a gathering of representatives from hundreds of species. It was the first time anyone had demanded justice for crimes against humans. Most council members expected the complaint to be ignored. Humanity was young and unimportant, and the Dominion had many allies. But something strange happened. 6 other species stood with humanity. These were small species, weak species, species who had been threatened by themselves. They had been afraid to speak before. Now, watching what humans had done, they found their courage. The council voted to create the first-ever Galactic Crimes Tribunal. They would be investigated. Punishments would follow. It was not much, but it was a beginning. Did not stay on Haven 7. She joined Human Intelligence Services, using her engineering skills to intercept alien communications. She had seen too much suffering to return to normal life. She needed to make sure it never happened again. 3 months after the battle, she caught something that made her blood freeze. The message was encrypted, buried in routine military traffic. It took her team 2 weeks to decode it. When they finished, took the results directly to Admiral Shin. "They're planning something," said. "The plus 2 other empires, the Hegemony and the Pale Consortium. They're building a secret alliance." Shin studied the decoded messages with cold eyes. What kind of alliance? "An attack. A coordinated strike on every human world simultaneously. Earth, Luna, Mars, all the colonies. They want to destroy us completely. Total extinction." The room was silent. Officers looked at each other with pale faces. This was not another Haven. This was the end of everything. "How long do we have?" Shin asked. The messages mentioned preparations, fleet movements, training exercises. "Based on what we've decoded, maybe 2 years before they're ready." Shin nodded slowly. "Then we have 2 years to make sure this plan never happens." She called a meeting of Earth's United Council, the leaders of humanity's government. Admirals and generals attended by video link. Scientists and diplomats filled the room. Even was invited, representing Haven 7 and all the colony worlds. Shin presented the intelligence clearly and completely. She showed them the alliance. She explained the timeline. She described what would happen if humanity waited to be attacked. "We have 2 choices," she said. "We can build defenses and hope they are enough. We can fortify our worlds and prepare for a war we may not survive, or we can take the fight to them first." "You mean invade?" a council member asked. "Conquer their worlds?" "No," Shin said firmly. "I mean liberate. They have enslaved dozens of species. They have conquered hundreds of worlds. The Pale Consortium treats entire planets as farms for resources. These empires survive because their victims are afraid, because no one helps them." She looked around the room. "We can be the ones who help. We send ships, weapons, trainers to every rebel group, every resistance movement, every oppressed species in their territory. We don't conquer their worlds. We teach their slaves to free themselves. We turn their empires against them from within." The room erupted in arguments. Some called it brilliant, others called it madness. How could humanity fight 3 empires at once? How could they support rebellions across half the galaxy? Stood and waited for silence. "I was a soldier once," he said. "I fought in wars that taught me to hate fighting. I came to Haven 7 to grow crops and raise my daughter in peace. I thought I could escape violence by choosing kindness." His voice grew heavy. "I was wrong. Peace is not something we can choose alone. They did not ask us if we wanted war. They came to our world and killed our people and took our children. We did not choose that fight, but we won it." He looked at the council members. "Now we face a bigger enemy. 3 empires planning our extinction. We can wait for them to come, or we can stand with everyone else they've hurt. Every slave in territory, every rebel in space, every oppressed person in the galaxy who dreams of freedom." He paused. "On Haven 7, 40 farmers held off an empire for 3 weeks. We did it because we had nothing left to lose and because we fought for our children. Imagine what happens when millions of people across the galaxy feel the same way. Imagine what happens when they fight together. That is how we win. Not by conquering, but by inspiring. Not by taking worlds, but by freeing them." The vote took 3 hours. Arguments flew back and forth. The risks were enormous. The costs would be staggering. Many would die. In the end, the vote was not even close. Humanity would go to war. Admiral Shin began planning immediately. Human ships would carry more than weapons. They would carry ideas, freedom, self-determination, the belief that no species had the right to own another. Teams of soldiers and advisors would train rebel fighters. Smugglers would run supplies through enemy territory. Intelligence agents would identify weak points and key targets. It was the largest military operation in human history, and it would be fought not for territory or revenge, but for the freedom of species humanity had never even met. Volunteered for the most dangerous missions. She would go behind enemy lines, helping to organize resistance movements in territory. Her father tried to stop her. "You've done enough," said. "You saved Haven 7. You decoded the Alliance. Let someone else take the risks now." Shook her head. "I saw what they did to our people. I saw children sorted like cargo. Somewhere in the galaxy right now, other children are going through the same thing. Other parents are losing their families. I cannot stay safe while that happens." She took her father's hands. "You taught me that when humans say enough, empires fall. Now it's time to prove it, not just for us, for everyone." Looked at his daughter, this engineer who had become a soldier, this quiet girl who had become brave beyond measure. He thought about her mother, who would have been so proud. He thought about the promise he had made to keep safe. Sometimes promises had to break so that better things could grow. "Come back," he said finally. "Whatever happens, wherever you go, promise me you'll come back." Smiled, "I promise." She left Haven 7 the next morning, aboard a fast ship heading toward enemy territory. The war to free the galaxy had begun. The war lasted 4 years. It was not like any war the galaxy had seen before. Human ships did not invade and conquer. They appeared in systems where slaves labored in chains, where rebels hid in mountains, where oppressed peoples had given up hope. They brought weapons, training, medicine, and something more valuable than all of these. They brought belief. "You are not alone," human advisors told rebel groups across the galaxy. "You are not weak. You are not broken. Fight with us, and we will show the Empire that their power is built on sand." And one by one, the sand began to shift. Spent 18 months in territory, moving between hidden resistance camps. She taught engineers how to build weapons from scrap. She showed fighters how to ambush patrols. She helped leaders plan attacks that struck fear into the hearts of their oppressors. The species she worked with had been enslaved for 500 years. They had forgotten what freedom looked like. They had been told so many times that they were worthless that they had started to believe it. Told them different stories. "On my world," she said one night around a campfire, 40 farmers defeated 200 soldiers. We had no training, we had no weapons. We had only the knowledge that we would rather die free than live as slaves. You have that same knowledge inside you. You have always had it. They did not take it from you. They only made you forget." The rebels listened. They remembered. They fought. Across the galaxy, the same scenes played out again and again. Human advisors working with alien rebels. Human ships smuggling supplies through enemy lines. Human intelligence identifying the weak points where carefully planned strikes could do the most damage. The hegemony fell first. It was a brutal military empire held together by fear and force. When humans began supporting rebels on their border worlds, the first cracks appeared. When those rebels won their first battle, more planets rose up. Within a year, the hegemony was fighting fires on 100 fronts. Their fleet was too spread out to stop any of them. The final collapse came suddenly, as these things always do. One day the Emperor was broadcasting threats of eternal vengeance. The next day, his own generals had overthrown him. The day after that, the hegemony officially dissolved into dozens of independent systems. The Pale Consortium lasted longer. It was a corporate empire, ruling through money and manipulation rather than direct force. But even corporations could not survive when their workers stopped working, when their supply lines broke down, when their customers turned into enemies. Human teams helped organize a galaxy-wide boycott. Species that had done business with the consortium for centuries suddenly refused their contracts. Worlds that had depended on consortium goods found new suppliers. The money stopped flowing, and without money, the consortium had no power. It took 2 years for them to collapse. There was no dramatic fall, no heroic battle. One day the consortium's leadership simply disappeared, taking their remaining wealth and fleeing to unknown space. No one tried to stop them. They were already irrelevant. The Dominion was the hardest fight. 2,000 years of empire did not die easily. They had built their civilization on the belief that they were superior to all other species, that they had the right to rule, that the universe itself had chosen them. Surrender was not possible. Compromise was not possible. They would fight until they were destroyed. So the galaxy destroyed them. The final battle happened on Prime itself. Rebel fleets from a dozen enslaved species surrounded the human ships led the assault, but they were not alone. Species that had been enemies for centuries fought side by side. Species that had never met before shared ammunition and medical supplies. Was there. She had survived 18 months behind enemy lines. She had been wounded twice, captured once, escaped through luck and determination. Now she stood on the bridge of a rebel flagship, watching the capital burn. The rebels she had trained were leading the ground assault. Former slaves fighting in the streets of their masters' cities. Former servants toppling the statues of emperors. Former property showing the galaxy that they had always been people. Admiral Shin accepted the Dominion's surrender on the bridge of the S Unbroken. The High Council knelt before her, their shells cracked and gray, their eyes dim with defeat. "The Dominion is dissolved," Shin said. "All enslaved species are free. Your military will be disarmed. Your leaders will face trial for crimes against sentient life. These terms are not negotiable. The leader looked up at her. You have destroyed everything we built. 2,000 years of civilization, gone because of your interference. Shin looked at him without pity. You built nothing, she said. You stole. You enslaved. You called yourself great while standing on the backs of others. Now those others are free and your greatness has been revealed for what it always was, cruelty dressed in ceremony. She turned to her officers. Take them to the holding cells. The tribunals will begin next month. The war was over, but the work had just begun. Building freedom proved harder than winning it. Species that had been enslaved for centuries did not know how to govern themselves. Worlds that had been exploited were stripped of resources. Old hatreds between oppressed groups threatened to explode into new conflicts. Humanity helped where it could. Advisors taught new governments how to function. Engineers helped rebuild shattered infrastructure. Diplomats mediated disputes that might have become wars. It was slow, difficult, frustrating work. But it was good work. It was work worth doing. 10 years after the Battle of Haven stood in his fields again. He was 72 now, his hair white and his body bent. But his hands still knew how to work the soil, and his eyes still watched the sunrise with wonder. The wheat grew golden in the morning light. Children ran between the rows, laughing and playing. Not all of them were human. Families from a dozen species had settled on Haven 7, drawn by its reputation as a world where freedom was born. Little, now 18, was teaching an engineering class to young aliens who wanted to learn the skills humans had shared with the galaxy. Came to visit. She was 40 now, with gray appearing in her hair and scars that would never fully heal. She had spent the last decade helping rebuild what the war had broken. She was tired in a way that rest could not fix. But when she stood beside her father, watching the fields they had fought to save, she felt something like peace. Do you think they'll try again? She asked. Some new empire thinking we've gone soft. Smiled. It was a real smile now, not the hard smile of a soldier preparing for battle. Let them try, he said. We remember, and we teach our children to remember. He looked at the aliens playing with human children, at the diverse crowd walking through the settlement, at the world that had become a symbol of hope for the whole galaxy. But I don't think they will, he continued. The galaxy learned too late what we are. They won't forget. They can't afford to forget. Nodded slowly. What do you think we are, really? Thought about the question. He thought about the battles he had fought, the friends he had lost, the price that freedom always cost. He thought about the farmers who became soldiers, the soldiers who became farmers, the ordinary people who did impossible things because they refused to stay silent. We are what happens when peaceful people are pushed too far, he said finally. We are what happens when kindness is mistaken for weakness. We are the proof that gentleness and strength can exist in the same heart. He put his arm around his daughter. The thought they understood us. They saw our farms and our families and our quiet lives, and they thought we were prey. They did not understand that we chose peace because we knew what we were capable of. They did not understand that our greatest strength was never our weapons or our ships. What was it? Asked. Looked at the children playing in the fields, human and alien, different species growing up together, the future that all their suffering had purchased. Our greatest strength, he said, is that we never stop caring about each other, about our families, about our neighbors, about strangers we've never met who cry out for help across the stars. That is what makes us human. That is what makes empires fall. Far above them, a ship passed through the morning sky, one of many carrying goods and people, and hope between the worlds that humans had helped set free. Its engines hummed with the sound of a galaxy learning to be better than it was. Watched it go, then looked back at her father. Do you regret it? She asked. Any of it? Thought about his wife, who had wanted him to stay peaceful. He thought about the container of weapons he had buried and then dug up. He thought about all the violence he had done, and all the lives he had taken, and all the prices he had paid. Then he thought about who had asked when they would rise up. He thought about the children who would never be sorted like cargo. He thought about the slaves who would never know chains. "No," he said, "I don't regret it. The galaxy learned too late what we are, but they learned that's enough." The sun rose higher over Haven 7, spreading light across the fields where wheat grew and children played and free people lived. It was enough. It was finally enough.